time to look back at Eureka in 2022, and I have got my top 10 favourite releases from them in that year. Now, there is a couple of movies that I didn't get to within my collection. The Saphead and Execution in Autumn are two films that I've been trying to get to. I just haven't had the time. Got a feeling that one or both of them would possibly have made it into my top 10. And then I never picked up Man Without a Star or the Angela Mao set as yet. So, you know, those four titles were in contention of possibly being in my list. But now I've got 10 fantastic titles to talk about here that I thoroughly recommend and ones that I enjoyed picking up. At number 10, we have KARLOFF and Maniacal Mayhem. This has The Invisible Ray, Black Friday, and The Strange Door. Now, I enjoy the first two movies, and I love The Strange Door, which is fantastic, primarily because of the Charles Laughton performance in this one. You get three very different tales, but the Charles Laughton and Boris Karloff mix in the last one just makes it the best of the bunch. And I love these 3-pack movies that Eureka have been doing. These classic horror films themed around whether it be monsters or an actor or whatever are terrific. The kind of thing that I just utterly love and want to see more of them bringing out. In fact, my number 9 release was 3 monster tales of sci-fi terror. Again, we've got Man-Made Monster, The Monolith Monsters, and Monster on Campus. All terrific films. Now, I'd say the standout for me here was probably The Monolith Monsters, and it's one of the movies that's lasted the longest with me. Having a kind of typical 50s science fiction movie sandwiched in between even more typical kind of movies, the best thing about it was the villain, the monster. It wasn't really something with a brain. It was an element, an item, these monoliths that were destroying humanity. Things that if they were not stopped would devour the earth and take over. It was a really nice impact it had for me, you know, galvanizing the community, trying to work together to get a common goal. We didn't have a monster bursting out of somewhere and taking people down. We had something that was reacting to its environment and taking over. It was fantastically and really well shot as well to create that unusual look about it. And, you know, seeing people turn to stone and things was just really interesting and fun. Number 8 on my list, and the first silent here, is The Hunchback of Notre Dame. I love this movie. It's one I wanted to see for the longest while. You get this terrific introduction to Notre Dame. You get to see Lon Chaney's Hunchback as he almost parkours himself the way down the front of it, climbing and shuffling down. It's wonderfully shot, and then we get into the story and it's just fantastic, right up to that wonderful climax at the end where they're storming Notre Dame, where Lon Chaney, the Hunchback at the top, is throwing things down and trying to stop them. Various bad guys and the machinations of various characters are happening at this point, the climax, and it's just so exciting. It's wonderfully shot. It has all these different factions going on, and it kind of changes the look of the film for each of these factions, and I just thought it was wonderfully immersive, terrific, and one that I really was not expecting to be as good as it was. It was my number 7, The Most Dangerous Game, a movie that I watched several times just back to back. Being 63 minutes, it was so easy to devour, and such a fantastic story. And it is a story that is familiar. We've seen it before. The most dangerous prey, or the most dangerous hunting, is man hunting man. It's done in many movies since this, and I just love this version of it. Watch Zarloff, a man who has this island and has a way of kind of shipwrecking people there and taking the survivors in and then hunting them. And we kind of follow the latest shipwrecked people who are there to be slaughtered. And it has some real moments of darkness as well, as we get taken down into his kind of trophy room and get to see a lot of the trophies as well. It leads it to the real threat of what's going to happen. The exciting aspect of the movie as we watch them on the hunt, as Zorloff kind of countermands our main hero. It was just exquisite. And to think that this movie was filmed on the same set as King Kong after that had been shot, or at night, was just wonderful. It's totally fantastic. It was, like I said, one of those movies I watched several times because it was so enjoyable and just drew me into that fantastic story. Next up on my list is Vampire, Carol Theodore Dreyer's immersive and fantastic horror film. I heard about this one for a while. There is 2 amazing commentaries on here that I listened to both of them. The kind of way it doesn't follow the typical tropes of filmmaking at the time and creates this otherworldly feeling to it. The story feels almost dreamlike in certain aspects. The standout sequence for me, or my memory of it, is 2 sequences really. Inside the coffin with the window, as we see it being transported from one area to another, is rather haunting, putting you in that place and just making the claustrophobia real at that point, as well as the terror. And the moment of the man who is kind of dying within the grain, who can't help himself, who's weighed down by this constant pressure that as it falls on top of him and can't escape. It's just haunting. The Vampire was a real twisted tale, one that made the hairs on my neck just stand up. It got under my skin, it affected me deeply, and I immediately went to the commentaries and devoured those straight afterwards. There's an academic one, and then there's one with Guillermo del Toro, which is terrific as well. Utterly fantastic. Next up we have another Johnny To film, 2 this time. It always seems to make it onto my top 10 list whenever Eureka release one of his movies. These are fantastic. What makes them so fantastic is the relationship between the hero and the perceived villain of the piece. We have a robber, a thief who has a plan set in motion. We have a hero. We have 2 people who are equally matched, and it's a battle of wits, and it's filled with these fantastic action set pieces and even more impressive conversational pieces between the characters as they have this almost verbal sparring going on. I love the fact that the main character is fueled by the fact that they are going to die. Our thief, he has a bad prognosis and is trying to fix certain things before he leaves the mortal coil, and our hero is just trying his best to solve and get himself from one step behind the criminal to on level footing. The sequel is good. It loses that emotional impact because of the sort of weight of the thief with the terminal illness in the first one. But the second one, having the bad guy be a magician and having the interaction again, was just incredibly fun. I could have watched more of these movies. They were just so easy and enjoyable. Number 4 on my list is a first 4K silent film I have, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. A movie that I do indeed love. I've watched several times. I think the fact that it doesn't give you all the answers and it's open for interpretation keeps bringing me back to it. That German expressionism of the painted sets are so otherworldly feeling, and I love the fact that this movie changes from reality into that skewed perspective world and lets you know that this isn't entirely 100% real. It could be fabricated, it could be half-truths, and it makes for that almost muddled narrative where you're trying to pick apart the threads to find out what's happening. You get the horrible killing sequences of the somnambulist Cesare, who is out to kill because he's been commanded to. The mystery of how the bad guy evades, and the whole wrap round with the asylum is just wonderful. Terrific, and the 4K just was utterly stunning. Next up on my list, number 3, is Revolver by Sergio Sollima. I almost wish this was in the Masters of Cinema series. Great Polizioteki, which I just loved. Great performance from Oliver Reed as the warden of a jail who receives a phone call saying that his wife has been kidnapped and he has to help a prisoner escape or she will die, and he ends up trying to unravel the mystery of why he's been targeted, why this prisoner has been told to vacate the prison, and we get to go with the prisoner and with Oliver Reed as they kind of work together and try and figure out what's going on. But you get the wonderful relationship between Reed and Fabio Testi, 2 great actors that I love. and this is a hard movie. Fantastic action set pieces, people die. There is a really interesting wrap up to this as well, not typical at all, and was just incredibly fun. Next up, and I don't have too much to say about this one because it's just phenomenal, it's Police Story in 4K. Now, I have the first two movies, Police Story. Jumping on the 4K was a no-brainer because you're getting Super Cop with it, which was just tremendous, and the transfers are brilliant, the extras are tremendous. Super Cop is, I love that film so much, and just to have all three in 4K was an absolute joy. The first Jackie Chan's I had on 4K. Number one, can't believe it myself, Son of the White Mare, a movie just blew me away. Such a visual style to this one. It was something so different and so impactful. I was scared to blink in case I missed something that was happening. And the movie takes you on this folklore fairy tale through this world of threes that continue to reoccur throughout the story, and it was just magical. Something wonderful about it. You get a secondary movie on here as well, Johnny Corncob, which I loved as equally as I did The Son of the White Mare, and more films by Marcel Jankovics as well. It was just a complete package. It was such a surprise, and it was such an engaging and just visually stunning movie that had an emotional impact as well. This is why I love Eureka, because they release movies like Son of the White Mare that just blew me away. Absolutely fantastic. I would love to know what your favourite Eureka releases of the year were. Let me know in the comment box below. There's more content up here if you want to see more of my stuff. And I'll see you next time on ManVFilm.